Tips by mediator and friend Traci Ahart, part of the series Mediation Tips by Fran Brockstein. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact dependent. Hi, everyone. This is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator, working online throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia Orłowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland.
And I'm Fran Brockstein, an attorney and mediator in Texas. And today, my dear friend, Traci Ahart, is finally joining us. We've been wanting her to join us for a long time. She's doing fabulous with her health, and she has so much knowledge and has such an outstanding reputation in the state of Texas for mediation. Traci, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm super excited.
Awesome. Fran, thank you for bringing Traci on. And why don't you, Fran, share a little bit about the big thing that Traci has gone through in the last year? Can you share a little bit about your own issue with cancer years ago and how it's made you stronger?
Traci and I are in a club we never wanted to be in.
Amen.
We are cancer survivors. Now, my journey was almost 20 years ago, and I will tell you the treatment of cancer now is completely different than when I went through. And of course, I had breast cancer. Traci had a different kind of cancer, but we have discussed this before as a life-changing journey. And I believe both of us use this as an opportunity for growth and to change, and it has made us, quite frankly, better mediators.
Absolutely. Yes. I concur with that 100%.
Yes. And ladies, before we continue, if you're watching this episode, please check out the prior episode where we interviewed Traci on her struggle with and her overcoming the challenge that was presented to her. And so she has a very powerful statement online. We play the video in the other episode. Make sure you visit her at hellonheelsmediation.com. And with that, Natalia, Fran, let's take it.
Well, Traci, since we only have you for a few minutes and your depth of mediation is extensive, what would you tell people that they need to know to help make their mediation more effective and a better few hours they spend with you to resolve their issues?
You know, Fran, I think first and foremost, and one of the most common misconceptions when I see parties come into mediation, a lot of times they're very anxious. They may not completely understand the process or understand the situation. I will tell you, in my personal family law mediations, I do not do joint sessions. I strictly do, individual caucus sessions. I feel like it's counterproductive. So a lot of times just letting people know you're not going to be in there with that other party. You're going to have your own safe space over here. You and I are going to have a chance to talk very openly. We'll talk confidentially unless you specifically want me to share. I think just having a comfort level on this is what to expect and this is what it looks like. And here's what we're going to walk out of here with. And it's called a mediated settlement agreement. And it's going to be binding. So all of this, who's going to have the kid win or anything, we're going to have some predictability at the end of today, and you're going to feel a lot better. I think from a more logistical perspective, the one thing I see in mediation that holds us up more than anything are not having certain documents. And I don't necessarily mean I don't need to see 2 years of bank statements, but come to mediation with your laptop. Come to mediation with all of your passwords for your various accounts and logins. Come to mediation with even phone numbers for, let's say, HR, and or if you don't have your health insurance information to see how much the children's health insurance is. Those are all obstacles we can get over without having to spend an hour and a half of your 4-hour mediation looking for them. So I really have done some trainings for other young attorneys for how to have an effective mediation. And of course, In Harris County and the surrounding counties, they're big fans of the 4 hour. And so that doesn't give us a lot of time to be effective if we don't have everybody prepared. So I think those are my top two things that I see the most when people come in.
You might be surprised to know that here in Poland we have 2 hour sessions, and this is why we do it multiple times. That
Right.
in a way is good because it gives people some time to first better prepare, but also then maybe rethink things, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad.
I was going to
But
say,
bearing the vast experience of the two of you, I really want you to tell me how you deal with people's emotions in mediation, meaning difficult emotions or high emotions that usually are destructive and can impact mediation negatively.
is that a Fran question or a Tracy question?
That is to both of you, and I am absolutely looking forward to some sort of a competition of answers.
So I know many of you have heard the Michelle Obama statement, when they go low, we go high. I subscribe to an alternate thought that's just a inverse of that. And that is, when those emotions come up here, I go here. I lower my voice. I lower my tone, even if I'm super frustrated. I try to speak not only in calm tones, but I also try to validate those emotions and say, I get it. I understand. I've been there in XYZ divorce or in this situation. I often will try to share some of my own parallel experiences so they don't feel like they're the only ones there. But I also try to redirect them. And I'm like, we're going to put on our big girl panties now. And we're going to take a deep breath and we're going to take a sip of water. And if you need a few minutes for a smoke break or take a walk, you're going to go do that. And then we're going to come back and we're going to reevaluate and take a look at this. And let's see how we can problem solve to get past whatever it is that's holding you back, to try to get you more of what you're wanting here. That's how I approach it, because otherwise, if you're up in their face, it just doesn't, it just raises that combative or that level of emotion, in my experience.
And I find a lot of people think the mediator is the decision maker. And I try to point out at the very beginning that it is their agreement. I'm here as a professional to facilitate communication, but I am not allowed in person or via Zoom to beat you over the head until you do what I think you should do. And I do find that a mediated settlement agreement with both parties realize that they can live with their agreements. They're not necessarily happy with their agreements. And in the long term, those are good settlements. Because really, and I point this out, in divorce law, there are no winners.
Right.
The children are the biggest losers. And I also point out, and a lot of times when I do mediations for pro se people with babies under a year old, I go, I co-grandparent with my ex-husband. This never ends. And they just are in shock. If they think somehow I only have to go for 18 years, nah, it doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
I agree.
So, the question I would have, of course, is going to have to do with technology and Zoom mediations. And so, I'll screen share to bring something back to memory. And a couple years ago, Tracy, so on our YouTube channel, we have this video, Get to Know Mediator Tracy L. Ahart, March 2020. Now, it
Yep.
says it was only posted a year ago and it says only 56 views. However, that is not correct. It was a later posting because we had to make some changes. But this video, Tracy, was originally published to your Facebook right when everything started shutting down in what, March,
That would have been
April
March.
2000.
That would have been mid-March. And if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, it may have been around March 13th.
Yeah.
I received a message from a friend who said, Abbott's going to shut this place down. And I thought she was crazy. And she said, you need to go this weekend and get a platform, i.e. instant mediations, because Mac, you'd already reached out to me previously. And you need to get a video out and you need to publish it this weekend. And so that project was done over a 48-hour period, one weekend in March of 20. It was dropped on a Sunday night, and there I was.
So, Tracy, the thing is, you were in a way a trailblazer, right? Because I remember getting so many other phone calls from other people saying, "Hey, Tracy told me about you guys. Can you help me get
Yep.
online, all right, as soon as
Yep.
possible?" And
Yep.
so that will forever be grateful, to you. So therefore, the question is, what is the number one tip you would give to somebody who is used to the old traditional model of doing it in person, which you do both, right? You do online and in person.
Me personally, I have not done a in-person mediation since March of 21, since I got sick. I do
Wow.
have one or two on the books coming up this month that will be my first ones, but now I only do full day in-person mediations because I'm traveling all over the state, so I will do an in-person for a full day and that's it. But
On
primarily it's virtual.
online, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
so
online I'll do all day long, but yeah.
got it. So with that, what is, I guess, the biggest tip you would give to somebody who was who was relatively new to the whole online model and is a little scared about whether or not it might be effective in getting mediation done? I know you probably answered this question a billion times in the last 2 years, but I'd like to hear it again.
I think it's been incredibly effective. And I think it's because people are more comfortable either in their own space or with their attorney, not having to worry about running into the other party. Sometimes they're too comfortable, and we can talk about that later. I'm sure Fran and I both could tell you all kinds of crazy stories. However, the one tip I would give, particularly an attorney who's not really used to it, is this. I don't care if you've got your client sitting next to you in the conference room. Give them their own device. I need to see their face. I need their face lit, and I need to see their face. I need to see their expressions. I cannot see them if you've got them at a conference table and your camera's across the room. I cannot see them if you're sitting at your desk and they're sitting across from there. I can't do it. So put them on a separate device, mute the speaker. I can still hear through the one speaker, but it is a game changer. And I've had numerous where they started out that way, and then somehow we had to reconvene and recess and reconvene, and then I was able to see them through their own device. Totally different experience. It's very much to me almost like being in person. I can read them. If I can read them, I can get it settled.
And Traci, I agree with you. Body language is so important. That's the one thing I miss about in person. But I will say I've been surprised how effective the Zoom mediations are. My settlement rates are about the same. I think people like it. I know the attorneys like it because they don't have to travel. When I was in Houston, a lot of times the attorneys would take another 45 minutes to go home at night. And so again, I do a lot of pro se, so I tend to do 2-hour sessions with them and I give them lots of homework. But again, I enjoy doing it because it's can save them literally thousands and thousands of dollars.
Sure, absolutely. I concur. I think Zoom. I mean, people think, is it worse or is it different? I had good settlement rates anyway, and I've not seen a difference because it's, if somebody was going to walk out or leave a Zoom mediation, they were going to have the guts to walk out or leave an in-person mediation. So,
Yeah.
Well, and I always like it when they say, "There's no way you're going to settle this." Those are the words I love to hear
We've all
because
heard
those
that.
make you settle.
Me
Those,
too.
I don't know why, but the ones where there's only one issue tend to be the hardest.
I agree with that.
Because people have given and given and given, and then they're down to the last. And usually it could be about the dog, or it
Or
could
the
be
crock pot.
yes. And it's like it's a $50 crock pot. Who cares?
I've bought a crock pot to settle a case before. I handed them a Target gift card that happened to be in my purse for $75 and said, "Go get yourself one of those fancy crock pots with the digital girlfriend and then sign." And she's like, "Really? Yes, go." We did it.
Wow.
I agree. Sometimes it's the little things that create the biggest problems.
Before we go into some more crazy stories, I would really want to use all the knowledge and experience you combine between yourselves. And I want to ask you a very provocative question, which is what would be the tips for mediation for the attorneys that attend the mediation with their clients? What would be your number one, two, or three tips for the lawyers?
Prepare your client. First of all, let them know what to expect. Have them know things like, what is a standard possession order? How is guideline child support calculated? I spend a lot of time explaining some of those basic concepts to clients in mediation, that if they already know them, then it makes it much easier for me to move forward. Be as prepared as you possibly can. I don't necessarily need your whole discovery file, but have current statements. Have your client have pulled up their bank account online that morning, so you've got current numbers to read off to me. Read off the last 4 of the bank account numbers, so I can move through that kind of stuff easily. I think those are my top 2. That's really where I see mediations stalling, where I've got to spend time on things that if the attorneys were ready to roll, they're there. And lastly, know that the mediator's got your back. If you've got a tough client, let me know ahead of time. Everybody in the world has my cell phone number. All you need to do is just pick it up, call it, and say, hey, Traci, I got a problem here. If I know to expect that, I know where to dial it back or where I need to step things up. And that would help your mediator single-handedly the most, more than anything, in my experience.
And Traci, I agree with you 100%. If they give me a heads up ahead of time, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes before the mediation, it is a big help. I find the attorneys that come prepared and basically they're ready to go to trial. Right. Those are the best attorneys to mediate with because they know their case upside and down and all around. And so it's important. And again, I agree with you. It's a waste of my time to be calculating child support. Right. And they need to understand that ahead of time. That's just wasting. I mean, I've spent 2 hours just doing the financials, trying to figure out what their assets were and what their debts were. Right. That's fine. I can do that. But that's 2 hours of their time that I shouldn't have spent.
Right. I had one that the estate was almost $4 million, and neither attorney had a spreadsheet for me. Now they had the old school inventory form that was like 20 pages or whatever. And look, I mean, I'm up for a challenge, but it was a lot. We went late into the evening to be able to sort of sort through some of that stuff. So It makes a difference. I think attorneys, if they realize a mediator can be your partner in this thing, then that symmetry that you have together really, really, really can make a big difference in how happy your client is in the end and what the outcome is.
Yep,
absolutely. We're here to help the attorney, not to be an impediment to it.
Correct.
And so the attorneys that work with us, and I seem like I get certain attorneys that are with me more than others, because they start to trust me and they know. Also, once I get going, I will stay. Even though we start with 4 hours, many times I've gone 6 or 7 hours. Traci, do you often go 8 hours the whole time? I find that to be pretty rare.
If my attorneys have learned that if you need a full day, you better book it, because if you book me for a 4 hour in the morning, chances are right now we're booked. We're not booking full days right now till the 1st of November, and we're 6 weeks out. So you've got to kind of gab your time. I find that that's an attorney, not a mediator issue. Attorneys know your cases. If the opposing side tells you we need a 6 hour or a full day, believe them. It means they know something you don't know. Get that time. Now, I will tell you one thing I do a lot more of now than I did prior to it being, and part of that's because of my physical, my medical stuff I went through. But I recess people if we have to and come back. And used to be that was a death knell for a mediation. But I give the parties a lecture at the end, and I'm like, look, this is the point we're starting at when we come back. And we're not going to do a lot of backsliding, okay? We've worked through this for a reason. You're going to have some second thoughts. We'll talk about those briefly, but here's where we're working from, and we'll move forward from there. That has been very successful for me. I would tell you I've settled 100% of anything I've recessed and brought back like that when I got everybody back. So it does, but it also takes me, I draft a pretty detailed MSA. So it takes me about an hour to draft, even with my form files and stuff on a kid and property kind of issue. Sometimes they're 12 to 15 pages. So, but they can go a lot faster if all that information is right here at your fingertips. I agree with that.
And it's great when the attorneys have talked in advance of mediation, because if the parties are not arguing about something, it's great to start off with what they've agreed to already. That
Bingo.
starts the mediation off in a very positive foot. And why should be discussing stuff that they're already in agreement with?
I
I
agree.
do I do beg attorneys to tell me ahead of time what the issues are and what the issues are that have been resolved.
Right.
And rarely do they do it, but when they do, I thank them immensely because it does help me. And I like to get the cause number ahead of time and kind of look at the file online if the county will let me. Some of the
That's the
smaller
problem.
counties
Yep.
are unique, but it's very helpful to read affidavits. I mean, the
Oh, I
pleadings
love
are kind of
affidavits.
boring, but
Don't give me
affidavits are
affidavits.
fun.
Yeah, give me affidavits. And, Fran, it's interesting. I loved what you said about once your attorneys trust you. Once you get a working relationship with what some of your regulars, and I've got a bunch of them at this point, at this stage in the game. But I always appreciate I'm always a little nervous when I've got two attorneys who are new to me because
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't know me. They don't know my style. They don't know I tell them, I'm not a mouthpiece to send your offer over. Tell me your wish list. And I'm going to ask them that in that room. I'm going to offer some suggestions. I mean, that's how I problem solve, right? And so once they get to know me and trust me, it is so much more effective in mediation because they know how I work. I know how they work. And we're trucking through it. And so that trust is a really good feeling as a mediator. When you know that attorney, when you tell them something, it's signal, hey, I need to either tell my client to settle up or maybe I need to tell them to go let the judge hear it. So I do appreciate and really enjoy those relationships once they get to that level.
Awesome. Awesome. You all, ladies, thank you so much for the behind the scenes of all of this, of what happens on day to day and your mediation practices. And keep doing the good job. Um, I was gonna ask one question, but we're running out of time. And that is, do you find that 4 hour mediations work? Like when Talia said, it's typically two in her jurisdictions. We're so used to the traditional half day approach of 4 hours or whole day of 8 hours. But I've always said that I think six is the optimal number. It's not too short where you're rushing through things, but it's not too long where it just never ends. What do you think about that?
I started offering that option. Was one of the first ones to do it because it wasn't the traditional, and I named it after one of my attorneys, Vicky Venza, who will love hearing that. She knows it's called the Vicky Venza mediation because I could never get it done in
Mm,
4. But if I
yeah.
had one issue on property or one issue on kid stuff, I just couldn't get it done. And I agree, they're not rushed. I've got time to establish that relationship, and for me, it pretty much books my whole day. That
Yeah.
way, if we do go over and we need it, you've generally got it. And so I'm a huge fan of it. I think it was the smartest thing I ever did. And I have people use it fairly regularly. I have about one a week that I end up doing like that, and it's great.
And
Awesome.
I agree. The 6 hours is just perfect. I mean, I often start with four, we go to six. Generally, if I go past 3 hours, we're going to settle because
Mm,
I don't keep people around just to earn my money.
Right.
If I'm beating my head against a wall and there's not any movement at all, then I cut them loose because some people do need to see the judge. I'm finding in a lot of these smaller Texas counties, they are ruling the way I anticipate. And the smaller counties are very conservative and they're going to follow the Texas family code pretty much.
Okay.
And so I just find mediation so much more fun than litigation.
Absolutely.
And with that, and the words of encouragement and wisdom from all of you, I thank you so much. I mean, having like real titans of Texan mediation on the screen with me today, that was an incredible experience, meeting Fran and Traci and Mark, of course. And that was great. And I hope that everybody who will be watching and listening will take something for them. And really, chapeau bas. I really bend very low before you. And thank you for all these words and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Natalia.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
All right, guys. Bye bye.